Episode 20, Bittersweets. Every neighborhood had a place kids could go when they didn't have much. A place where $1 felt like a fortune. Where loose change in your pocket could turn into candy, chips, and a little bit of happiness. In Terrace Gardens, that place was Miss Bernice's door. She didn't have a store. No neon signs, no cash registers. Just a small table set up inside the doorway of her apartment. Candy bars stacked in rows. Juice bottles sitting in a cooler. Chips, pickles in jars. Sometimes homemade brownies wrapped in plastic. It wasn't fancy, but it didn't need to be. If you grew up around the way, you probably spent half your childhood standing at her door. 2 sour belts, Peanut said one afternoon. 50 cents. I got 40. Then you get 1. Baby Tay stood next to him counting quarters like he was doing complicated math. I want chips. You got chip money? Miss Bernice asked. He shook his head slowly. She smiled, then slid him a bag across the table anyway. Look, don't tell your mama. Baby Tay grinned like he just won a lottery. Everybody loved Miss Bernice. She had been there longer than most of the families in Terrace Gardens. Kids grew up buying candy from her. Then years later, came back buying candy for their little brothers and sisters. Some people moved away, came back just to visit, just to stop by her door. She wasn't just a candy lady. She was part of the neighborhood. Like the basketball court, like the stoop, like the buildings themselves. The morning everything changed was quiet, too quiet. Miss Bernice's door was closed. At first nobody thought much of it. Maybe she overslept. Maybe she ran an errand. But the morning kept moving, and the door stayed closed. By noon, people started asking questions. Anybody seen Miss Bernice? Oop, her door still closed. Jose knocked first, nothing. Then Sheila knocked, still nothing. The hallway started filling with worrying faces. Eventually, someone called for help. The ambulance arrived fast. Paramedics rushed into the building. The whole courtyard stood outside watching. Nobody talked. Nobody moved. The minutes stretched long. Then the paramedics came back out slowly, and everyone understood. Miss Bernice had passed away. Heart attack. Just like that. The neighborhood felt different the rest of the day. Quieter. Kids stood near her apartment door. Even Dre didn't have jokes. Peanut kicked a rock across the sidewalk. She always gave me extra candy. Jojo leaned against the fence. My little brother used to come here every day. Baby Tay looked confused. Why's she gone? Nobody had a good answer. Because death always feels strange when it happens to someone you felt permanent. Miss Bernice had always been there, and suddenly she wasn't. Later that evening, a group of older people gathered near the benches, talking quietly. One of the old men pointed down the street. You know what's crazy? Everybody looked. Across the street's at a liquor store. Next to it, a smoke shop. Down the block, 2 fast food spots. Fried chicken, greasy burgers, cheap food. Every direction you look. Something selling these things, just slowly destroying people. The old man shook his head. They put this stuff everywhere around us. Another woman nodded. Liquor on every corner. Cigarettes. Cheap food full of grease and sugar. He sighed. They don't build grocery stores here. They don't build health clinics. But they make sure we got liquor and fast food everywhere. Nobody argued because everybody could see this pattern. Places like Overton Hills had juice bars and organic grocery stores. Terrace Gardens had liquor stores and fried chicken. Different neighborhoods, different expectations for how long people were supposed to live. That night, my mother sat at the kitchen table with us. Her voice was calm but serious. You know what happened to Miss Bernice today? We nodded. She wasn't that old, CC said quietly. No, my mom replied. But sometimes, the things around us slowly damage our bodies. She looked towards the window. You ever notice how many liquor stores and smoke shops in their neighborhoods like ours? I nodded. They know exactly what they're doing. Target marketing, she said. Selling the same unhealthy things over and over into a community slowly destroys itself. Baby T frowned. That's mean. It is. Then she looked at me. That's why you have to be careful about what you consume. Food, drinks, habits, everything, she paused. Because sometimes systems don't destroy communities overnight. Sometimes they just give people the tools to slowly destroy themselves. The next day, a small memorial appeared outside of Miss Bernice's door. Flowers, candles, cards, kids leaving candy wrappers and love notes. One note written in crayon said, "Thank you for the free chips. People came by all day. Parents, kids, old neighbors who had known her for decades. Even Manny stood there quietly for a moment. Malik nodded once towards the door. Nobody joked, nobody laughed, because everybody understood something. Miss Bernice wasn't just a candy lady. She was part of the neighborhood and our childhood. And now that part, the neighborhood was gone. That night I sat by the window with my notebook again. The courtyard lights flickered outside. The spot near Miss Bernice's door locked empty. Too empty. Like a piece of the neighborhood had been just erased. I started writing in my journal. Sometimes the most important people in the neighborhood aren't the loud ones. They're the quiet ones who show love in small ways. A free bag of chips, an extra piece of candy, a smile when someone had a bad day. Miss Bernice didn't run a block. She didn't have a power or reputation, but she helped raise a whole generation of kids without even realizing it. And maybe that's the real kind of influence that matters. Because sometimes the things hurting our community the most don't arrive with sirens. Sometimes they arrive quietly on every corner, in a bottle, or wrapped in candy. Chapter 20, Bittersweets.